What thing?
March 10th, 2026 Forest Grove School District Board of Directors meeting is called to order at 5:30 p.m. We'll start with the roll call of board members present. Alma Lozano. Here. Risa Franco. Here. Kate Grandeski. Here. Pete Truax.
Here.
Christy Kotke is here and Maya Andrade is excused for tonight and absent. If we could ask everyone to please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, looking for approval of tonight's agenda. So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and we're gonna move right into board reports tonight. I wanted to ask board members if they did have reports. I know Director Truax has one. And Director Franco, did you have a report tonight? Okay, let's start with Pete and then we'll go to Lisa.
So there are two things I'd like to comment on. One is that I had the pleasure this morning of addressing my colleagues in the Forest Grove Daybreak Rotary Club about the pasta class at Forest Grove High School and how they can use the QR code to order on that. And there was some enthusiasm on that, not only for the desire to help out Forest Grove High School, lack of a better name, Pasta Club. Consider the possibilities. And good.
We got you, yeah.
Okay, you're all week. And also had an opportunity for the Rotary Club to see what is going on at the high school and the kind of student service that is taking place. The other thing is tomorrow morning, I believe there's a monthly meeting of the City of Forest Grove Park and Recreation Board, and if there's anything my colleagues here wish to carry forward to that board, feel free to share the information between now and the ungodly hour of 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. I think that's it.
Director Franco?
I had the pleasure to read to second graders and kindergartners last week for the Across America Week. It was a very humbling experience. I was very nervous to read in front of others. I don't think I've ever comforted myself so much of like trying to show pictures and also read the words like somewhat crooked and upside down. So it was a blast. Everyone got to wear pajamas. That was really fun. And it was just great to see all the students really excited about reading and kind of learning the importance of reading. And I got to make some really fun noises reading to the students. So it was a great experience. I hope to do it again in the future, but thank you for that.
I would like to add that I also read in front of the fourth grade class at Village School. I did not use a picture book. I've tried that in the past, same thing. I end up throwing the book halfway across the room. This time I read the deep and poignant poem, Casey at the Bat. Not only is it a poem that is one of my favorites considering my love for baseball, but it's also one that allows me to act out a little bit, much as I don't want to do that. But it was a fun time, kids had a good time with it, I think, especially when they jumped when I called strike one, strike two, strike three. That's it.
All right, thank you. I wanted to start my report tonight with a text that my dad sent me just before the meeting. I said I was getting ready to go for school board and he texted, "Tell the board how extraordinary the cast of Anne Frank was. It was even more moving the second time. I am so grateful for their choice of Anne Frank." And I said, "You got it, Dad." And I wanted to start my thanks tonight to highlight the work that was put on by the Forest Grove High School Theater Program. The actors and director John Anderberg for the work and portrayal of this significant part of our history. And thank you to so many community members who came out. I think people who had never come to the theater or known that there was a little theater showed up the second weekend as well. And I was talking to my sister about it, that my dad was very emotional guy. But my sister and I think in 86 years, have never remembered a time when we actually saw my dad in tears. And it was sitting next to him at that play. And he was so moved, and as were most of us in the audience, but for student actors to be able to evoke that kind of emotion and do that in such a powerful way was really appreciated and impressive. I did also want to mention things that the technicians on the lighting and the set design were also really key points of how that was portrayed, the audio technicians. So all of that work was just greatly appreciated, resonated throughout the community. I also wanted to thank you, to echo Pete's thanks of a culinary arts teacher, Andrea Loeffler. I had been down at the high school to pick up some pasta and we got into a long conversation. This is when kids were not in school. She was down there working and stocking things up. And she talked about how she approaches her program and is constantly innovating and thinking about what she can do next with what she's teaching kids. And we talked about people in the community starting to learn about the things that our high school students are learning and that our teachers are doing. And so we called this the pasta pilot. She has created this sheet and we said, well, the board doesn't know this yet because Pete's piloting it, but we said, let's give it a go in Rotary and see what happens. So this is the official first attempt at seeing how they can run this distribution program with pasta. I also told our superintendent, I can guarantee no other superintendent in the state is getting a text message from the board chair saying that I have questions about a potential pasta pilot. And so I just love that this is how this community rolls. We can, Andrea dropped flyers off at Pete's house. We had to kind of coordinate that. And it's just really great to see teachers innovating and continuing to want to push and involve the community, and that maybe there's a way the board can support in that. We'll see. We're setting the bar high for Pete's order, so we'll see how many he can get. We also met with board chairs. This is our third meeting, and the question at this meeting was, is this meeting necessary? So we want to make sure that if we are going to commit to monthly meetings with board chairs, what are we going to do with this meeting and what's the value? And every board chair went around and said, so far the value was just having an awareness of what other boards are doing, building the relationship, because now board chairs are reaching out to other board chairs with questions. But the best part that came out of this meeting was at the end, Becky Timchuk brought up the chart of accounts. And the chart of accounts is something that most board members in the state and probably some on this board might not really know yet what that is. We've talked about it a little bit. But what Becky highlighted again for us, she sits on the Board of Education. Chart of accounts, we'll get into the weeds just a tiny bit here because we can. Eileen has explained this through the budget committee a little bit, is how we code all the different pieces of the budget. And when I say we, I don't mean we, I mean the people doing the work. And the state is now asking business managers to be able to code those things differently and in a much more complex fashion with the goal of trying to have alignment. And what's happened, how this process works, is that feedback has been given. Feedback has been given from districts. Please do not do this. Do not do it in this way. But feedback has been offered up to say, we do think we can, within the system we have, make some adjustments together as business managers to meet both goals. But where that is now, and our understanding in the chairs meeting, is that that feedback that's been very clearly communicated has fallen flat and is not getting to the people who are gonna actually take the vote on this in April, which is the Board of Education. So what Becky's asked was, we need to elevate that information that's been coming up loud and clear, and we need boards to be able to call their board director on those Board of Education and say, here's what we need, the changes we need to happen with the chart of accounts. And there's a huge gap there. So there's a gap because most boards wouldn't even know what chart of accounts are. And when you watch the Board of Education meeting, those directors are saying, well, we've asked the districts, we've gotten feedback. And I'm watching those meetings like, head on desk, like, have you asked the districts? So we're gonna try to close this gap before April. And that was the ask of the chairs. We do think there's consensus in the regional chairs group to elevate those points about changes that we would like to see, and have board chairs maybe now send the same letter and connect with those board of directors at Board of Ed before the April meeting to say, please come and talk to us. And that's a long story for nobody really out there, but just this is a chance for me to talk to the board about what's happening there. And I think the strength of what can happen when board chairs are now talking. There were a couple board chairs that said, I don't know what the chart of accounts is. And so Becky's like, ask your business manager. So now we're getting board chairs asking questions and being able to have conversations with people that maybe will listen. So, woo, that's a lot. And before I move on, I did want to say, I know we're also not supposed to have surprises. That's one of the things you're told when you get on the board is no surprises. Let's just make sure everybody knows what's coming. But this board also does not know the Oscars is coming up pretty soon. And we don't have this yet, but we are going to have a little informal, our own Oscars this week called the Boardies. And we'll talk about this later. But there was our first nomination for the first Boardie ever in Forest Grove School District for Best Editing. Best Editing. And that is Brisa Franco. And Brisa Franco this week came through with some editing on our legislative candidate questions. And the quality of edits that she sent in were worthy of the very first Boardie nomination. And we'll talk about that during board discussion. But Brisa, congratulations. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. West.
Well, I just wanted to.
Oh, yes.
I forgot that, I also read on Friday and, Dilly to the kinders and, I had my classic pop-up books and the kids were practicing yawning in one of the books I had, so I had 3. And they're just beautiful, beautiful artistic books and, you know, they have all kinds of art in that and we had a great time. But then I walked out to check out and there was the principal and I saw his book and I said, whoa, it's going to be a hard follow-up. So anyway, it was a great time. And Annie Wilkington, I taught with her there and she's just great. And the kids were just fabulous. It was very, very interactive. And I, as always, had a good time. And on to Cornelius to read. So yeah, it was a fun Friday.
Thanks, Kate. And thanks to John Allen too for organizing that and getting that to us to be able to have the invite. So, all right, Dr. West.
Great, thank you. I want to start by saying I appreciate your comments related to the TDAM, staying tuned into what's taking place at a legislative level and advocating for things that make sense to school districts are really important. It takes a team to do this, so I appreciate that. In terms of what I want to share, I'm going to be brief this evening. We are neck deep in budget season, and so a lot of our efforts are focused on preparing for the budget meetings that we have coming up in May, during which we will present the school district's budget. Starting later this week and into next week, we have several engagement sessions that we scheduled with families and staff and school leaders that put that out to their communities. So we're looking forward to visiting with our stakeholders around the district and hearing from them what's important and having them help us shape the priorities that we've already asked our community about through the survey. So that's forthcoming. And then there's a couple of things that I want to share on the screen here is that, thank you, one more. We bring these forward at the beginning of every month. I've seen these reports before, so I won't spend time orienting us to what's on these reports, but we are still below our budgeted enrollment, 51 students so far for the month of March. And as we have been discussing, combined with last year's decline in enrollment and the previous year's decline in enrollment, this will result in about $1.5 million less funding for us, just based on the enrollment decline. So that is something, as I said previously, we monitor closely. We look at this every single month to see where we stand. The state does do some smoothing for the district so that if there is a decline in enrollment, you don't realize that all at once, you don't take a super large hit. But we've been declining for some time, and so we will realize a reduction in funding next year as a result of declining enrollment. And then the next slide shows these same data, but organized by specific schools and specific job classifications. I also want to share one more thing with the school board. We've talked a lot about instruction throughout the year and a half that I've been with the district so far. This morning, I had an opportunity to be at Fern Hill Elementary School, and I was in a kindergarten classroom. And I hope this works. So Enrique, if you go to the next slide, please. Yes. So I had an opportunity to observe a small group of kindergarten students learning their phonics. And what really struck me is how incredibly engaged they were. Engaged to the point where one of the students will call out, you'll hear her, and as we watch this video, she calls out because she notices the teacher made a change to the phonics part. So the kids were really tuned in, but super, super good at their sounds. I was impressed at their ability to actually associate the symbol that they're seeing on the sound bar with the right sound. And this process, it's a game to them. You'll see that they're having a good time, they're enjoying themselves. But this process of associating sounds, symbols, so early in their academic career is going to set them up well for reading as they matriculate into the later grades.
Remember the diaper? Oh, you remember he's wearing the diaper. Anyway, next one.
So it's just a small portion of the entire lesson, but I love that you can see right in the foreground there, the little girl distracting the boy, and he was so into it. He didn't stop his phonics practice. So again, this is happening in classrooms all across the school district. It's phenomenal to see kids develop those early literacy skills in a way that we know science and evidence support. So I thought the board might like actually seeing that in practice this evening. And that, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just glad that that boy's getting training for later in life.
Yeah, they have.
That's also a joke.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I see that also with the pre-kinder, 3 and 4. And at Cornelius, it's just fascinating. The kids are counting up to, these are 3 and 4-year-olds, up to 20 in English. And I'm just so amazed. And I asked the teacher the other day, I said, well, how many can count to 10 or. And she said, well, most of them now can count to 10. In fact, they're going to 20. And there's one little boy that's 3 that is, he must be gifted because she said he'll count forever. I mean, he just, but they know the routine. And, they dance to the, I mean, there's movement and dance. And I mean, you're using all your senses in what they're doing. And the foundation is incredible. I mean, I'm just so impressed. I wish that all our pre-kinders could have that in our district because it is just phenomenal.
It's a great foundation. You didn't see me dancing with the group of kindergartners. They were counting to 100. Because I did that this morning too, but I 100% agree. The foundation is phenomenal. As I've said, it takes a while before the instructional foundation that we're laying today will actually show up in any kind of summative assessment. That takes time to show up. But it is so encouraging and inspiring to see what our teachers are doing with our youngest students.
Thank you. We do not have a report tonight from FGEA, and unscheduled public appearance is none. So we're going to move on to consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent agenda a board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? Director Truax.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and we're going to move on to presentations. Our first presentation tonight is from FFA student Raylan Marino, Forest Grove High School student, and just all around fantastic person. Welcome.
Thank you so much. As you stated, I'm Braylon. I'm a senior at Forest Grove High School this year, as well as serving as the president of the Forest Grove FFA chapter. On behalf of FFA, I compete in public speaking contests. That said, I placed first at the district level for my speech this year and first at the sectional level. That said, I'm moving on to state next week, where I will compete on Friday. For this contest specifically, it's called Advanced Prepared Public Speaking. I prepare a 6 to 8 minute speech about a current agricultural topic. After delivering that speech to a panel of judges, I am then asked questions for 5 minutes about my topic or my speech. What I'm presenting tonight is my speech titled Growing the Future, the Need for Agriculture Education. At our local grocery store, aisle 5 is the dairy aisle. It never fails to be packed with shoppers, browsing the seemingly endless variety of cheeses, yogurt, and of course, milk. One Saturday morning, after parking my cart, I tune into the conversation between a mom and her elementary-age son taking place next to me. "Hey mom, guess what? Chocolate milk comes from brown cows," the boy says proudly. She jokingly replies with, "Yep, just like strawberry milk comes from pink cows," gesturing to a carton on the shelf. They both laugh, but my stomach drops as I realize this isn't just a harmless joke. Instead, it served as a reminder of how disconnected many people are from the production of their food. Agriculture is more than cows, plows, and sows. It's a vital part of our economy and future, which is why ag education at all age levels is necessary, especially within a growing society. The knowledge of basic agricultural practices can be referred to as ag literacy. In full, the American Farm Bureau defines ag literacy as the knowledge of the industries and practices involved in the production and delivery of food, fiber, and fuel that humans need to survive and thrive. General information regarding how the industry functions was once prevalent in the minds of a majority of the population, but has declined rapidly over past decades. The disconnect between farmers and consumers is primarily due to a growing American population in conjunction with a declining population of farmers and ranchers. This can be seen by the fact that the number of individuals directly employed in agricultural operations currently stands at less than 2% of the U.S. population. As a result, the 98% of those who are disconnected from agriculture hold power at the polls for policies that impact farmers, in addition to younger generations that are further removed from agriculture than ever before. It is essential that ag practices and knowledge of agriculture are enhanced for individuals from elementary school to high school to adulthood, because not only do we depend on the diligent work of farmers, but the choices consumers make ultimately impact the livelihood of their operations. In order to prevent situations like what I observed in the grocery store dairy aisle, it is vital that ag programs are enhanced beginning as early as grade school. Through the implementation of ag-centered curriculum at a young and impressionable age, elementary students are likely to retain more information and carry it into their futures. On top of incorporating ag topics into existing curriculum, Ag in the Classroom programs can also be beneficial for all elementary age groups. These lessons promote the use of agriculture to teach science, math, history, nutrition, and other subjects, perfectly showcasing how agriculture affects various aspects of everyday life. Another area that can be capitalized on for this particular age group is field trips. Whether it's visiting a pumpkin patch in the fall or traveling to a local family farm come spring to see chicks and pick the first strawberries of the season, these experiences help students understand where their food comes from. By establishing the concept of agriculture while kids are still young, it helps to create a strong foundation that they will possess in secondary education and beyond. It is just as important, however, to continue building off of this foundation as students enter junior high and high school. Across the US, only 22% of high schools incorporate ag into their curriculum, whether through ag programs or otherwise. While students may not view these numbers as an issue, they directly correlate with the rapid decline of ag literacy across the nation. Since fewer students come from agriculture backgrounds now compared to previous generations, it is essential that ag programs within secondary education institutions are enhanced to educate students about the source of our food, fiber, and fuel. Adding ag-related electives is a step that can be taken to combat this issue. The learning by doing concepts in ag programs are unique compared to regular core classes, in that students gain hands-on experience that they can use outside of the classroom through engaging labs and field trips. Along with ag programs comes the FFA organization, which doesn't just develop future leaders, but teaches students about agriculture and the importance of the industry. Finally, ag courses offer learning opportunities while employing industry standard practices, such as customer relations at a school plant sale or working with a team on a project. Through the implementation of ag programs, students are able to learn and experience how the industry functions, developing the next generation of leaders in agriculture. On top of educating students, it is also important to educate adult consumers about agriculture. Even among adult populations, a vast number of people have little to no understanding of where food comes from before it reaches the grocery store. This is a major concern, considering that these same individuals often vote on policies that can drastically impact the production of farmers' operations. Thus, there must be systems in place to better educate such consumers. One beneficial implementation would be increased visibility of breed royalty and dairy princess ambassadors at public events like fairs and rodeos. Having a designated booth to speak with the public regarding agriculture would have a greater impact than simply a smiling face. Campaigns such as the Got Milk campaign launched in the mid-90s also serve as educators. Consumers who are unsure of the meaning behind a catchy slogan are likely to do some research and learn something about the industry in the process. Working to educate this large group of Americans will ultimately cause them to make informed choices as consumers, benefiting farmers and the industry as a whole. The issue of ag literacy doesn't just affect one person, but causes a chain reaction that impacts farmers and the agriculture industry. By educating through exposure and tangible experience, we can better combat the current disconnect between consumers and agriculture, increasing appreciation for farmers. It is my hope that through the education of kids and adults alike, both will know that chocolate milk doesn't come from brown cows. Instead of explaining simple facts, we can discuss current issues facing the agriculture industry. But until then, we must continue to educate ourselves and work to increase the knowledge of those around us. By writing letters, giving presentations, and speaking with school boards and state representatives, we all have the ability to advocate for ag education, doing our part to support the industry that America depends on. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the board?
Yes, I loved your use of alliteration in your presentation, and your voice inflections and your use of hand gestures to kind of use an exclamation in your presentation. I thought that was great, and your enunciation was amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Everything she said in your eye contact too. I felt that you were really speaking to us. So
Thank you.
And can I ask about, this particular competition that you're in?
Mhm.
And when you are no longer in the FGHS FFA, is there recruiting happening for this club where people are gonna be, because isn't it true that there's not always someone enters the speech competition to the levels that you do, or is that always gonna be happening, or how do you guys work that in your club? Who's gonna do what?
That's a great question. Well, fun fact, public speaking is the #1 fear in America. So it is pretty difficult to get people to do this contest. But this year we had 3 freshmen try out speaking for the first time. We have a contest in FFA called Creed Speaking, which is designed primarily for first years. It's where they recite 5 simple paragraphs of the FFA Creed to a panel of judges. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes. So that's just a great introduction for them to really get involved within the speaking contest. So it is my hope that after I graduate, these freshmen, and we even have some juniors and sophomores who are involved in speaking, that these individuals will go on to continue speaking. And that was my goal this year, was really to focus on recruitment. And I'm just glad that these individuals decided to try out speaking, because I ultimately found my passion for it through FFA.
And what do you think is for you personally the most challenging about this particular competition?
That's a good question. I'm not as good with on the fly stuff. I'm really good with memorization, and that's kind of my strong suit. But the 5 minutes of questions is always up in the air. I never know if it's going to be more of fact-based, like what sorts of political initiatives are being voted on by voters that are impacting the agriculture industry, or if it's more of opinion-based, such as questions like, what do you think is the most important age group to start teaching ag literacy to? So it's just being well-rounded and well-versed in all the areas of ag education and agriculture in general, because ag education and the lack thereof ultimately is the #1 driving force behind a lot of our agricultural issues that we see in society today. So to answer your question, I think just the questions that they ask afterward and being prepared for any aspect or facets they ask about.
So when you're, in your classes and that, do you talk about organic versus, chemical, fertilizer? So your thoughts about that?
Yeah. So at our high school, we did talk about, I took an intro to ag class my freshman year, and we did watch a couple of informational films about the whole GMO versus non-GMO and organic versus conventional produce. At our high school specifically, we don't have this class, but I know other high schools offer a course called Ag Issues, where in that class, they go over so many of the topics like you mentioned, that organic versus conventional, and those highly debated topics. In fact, I did do a speech my sophomore year about GMOs and talking about chemical fertilizers versus organic farming. But we don't necessarily dive deep into that within our high school classes, just because it is so highly debated right now. However, if we did implement an ag issues class, I can totally see that being one of the main issues that we focus on, since it is so relevant today.
Out in Gales Creek, we have a couple, organic farms, flower farms and food. And, if your group, well, you're going to graduate, but, it's really interesting on how people are growing organically. And the food does taste really different. I mean, it tastes much better if it's organic. I also want to say, your enthusiasm and joy, it's really contagious. So, keep going what you're doing. It's wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I'll add, I first met Braylon about a year ago on my first CT visit to the high school, and was instantly impressed and still impressed. The fact that you memorized all that, that's excellent. Well, I think what I'm most excited about is I don't think you'll lose this passion. I suspect that in future years, we're going to read about you advocating for agriculture and agriculture education, and I'm really excited about that. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do with this.
Thank you. I appreciate all your time and your feedback. It really is helpful, and I appreciate it.
I had a number of things. Yeah, I'm sorry, the recovering speech teacher, it's important that you speak, verbal communication is important, but nonverbal, emphasizing that message. The gestures you use, the eye contact, spoken of earlier. Those are all methods that we use to speak, and that's wanting to communicate. And that's one of the reasons why I get so furious with Zoom, because we can't see all of those nonverbal cues, which are so very, very important. That's one thing. But wait, there's more. We just got finished with a legislative session in which an effort was made to take some 1,700 acres out of exclusive farm use and move it into urban use in around the city of Hillsborough. And that measure was highly debated and was ultimately withdrawn, much to the happiness of the farming community, the agricultural community, and to those that are opposed to what they see as unbounded urban growth. Those two categories, the rural and the urban, have to learn to live with each other. The problem that we're facing with a growing population, school attendance notwithstanding, is something that we have to meet with a number of ways. And one of those ways, probably the easiest of all, is to grab some of that land on the edge of the cities so that they can be developed. That takes away some of the richest farmland not only in Oregon, but in the United States. So there's a good deal of opposition, well-founded opposition. Has to be discussions on that because that raises a wider issue of what we call that rural-urban split, or Eastern Oregon and metropolitan Portland. We have to learn to communicate with each other. You just can't keep throwing stuff to the wall and see what sticks. We have to work together because there's a finite amount of land. And we need to make the wisest use of it. You are doing things in agriculture that allow us to make that land more productive. So we can grow more and more on less and less land, but that is still no excuse to say the first reaction to population growth is to take land on the edges of cities. There's a better way to do it. We have to work together to find that way. I'm charging you with that responsibility. because guys like people like us, our time is gone. So I just wanted to pass that on to you. And I'm sincerely glad that chocolate cows don't give chocolate milk.
Yes.
It does raise the concern, how do we get Neapolitan ice cream?
Oh, that is true.
And on that bad joke, I'll shut up. Thank you very much.
That's probably not a follow-up you're gonna hear in competition.
Might lighten the mood a little bit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Yes.
much for the time. Congratulations, and we look forward to what's coming in your future. So thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, following that is winter benchmark data with Arturo Lomeli. No pressure.
Yeah.
We're looking for the eye contact and the hand
Yeah.
gestures.
This is not fair at all, at all.
Well, I actually competed FFA in high school too, so that's what you got. Yeah, yes, speech. I put my stuff in.
Well, hello, everybody. Unmute this. Is that what we need to do? Does that work, Bethany? Okay, good. I think I can pass this in. All right, good evening, board. Arturo Lomelí, Assistant Superintendent, Director of Teaching and Learning, here with my amazing team. We have Juliana Kelly, who oversees secondary education, as well as Magda Romero, who oversees elementary education. And we're here tonight to give you an update on our winter benchmark data. So a little bit of background. If you recall, we came to you in the fall during a work session where we talked about data and some of the things that we use to help measure our progress over time. That could be statewide data or SBAC data that is given once per year in the springtime, and that appears on our state report card, right, from ODE. to measure district progress achievement. And we also talked quite extensively about our local benchmarks. That is where we really put our weight behind as a system. We believe that local benchmarks are more productive for our students and for our staff because they give us real-time data to tell us how students are achieving based on national norms and also how they're growing, which to us is the most important measure. So just recently, in this fall, Senate Bill 141 passed and it's centered around a variety of concepts around accountability. One of the pieces to it is that districts are now expected to do these benchmark assessments 3 times a year. They are required to discuss that data within their schoolhouse, the school buildings with principals and staff 3 times a year, and also present in public meetings to the board 3 times a year. Fortunately for us, we do those things already. This has been a common practice for us for since I've been here and prior to that. And so this isn't anything new for us. But today we are here to present some data in terms of our progress we just completed our winter benchmarks and are going to share some of that data with you today. Sound good? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Magda, who's going to get us started with some elementary overview.
All right, so we're going to look at English literacy, Spanish literacy, and math benchmark data. And the ones I'm going to start with are, I have to manage this as well. There we go. M-Class and M-Class Lectura. That's the benchmark that we use from Amplify currently, and it measures K through 6 reading. And then I'll review some math data. We use MAP to measure K8, K12 mathematics. Thank you. Okay.
Can we do this for you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to start off with our M-Class reading. This is English reading, and I ask that you focus on the far left 2 columns. This represents kindergarten. The red or the left-hand side of those first 2 bars is the fall benchmark, and the right-hand side is the winter benchmark. Red is well below. The orangish color is below grade level. Green is at, and blue is above. So what we're seeing here across the data, now across the chart, is a mid-year shift towards benchmark. It's driven mostly by growth in the areas of above and well below. Well, well below remains the largest group at this time. At the district level, at or above moved from 39% at the start of the year to 43% this winter. And over the same window, below and well below decreased from 61% to 57%. The biggest district-wide movement is students moving above benchmark. So we had an increase from 16% to 21%. That's 5 points. That's an overview of all grades. Right now, our instructional focus is moving to the well below group because they're the largest group right now that needs to make growth. Our district-wide below is still 43% at this point of the year. And so this group requires that we strengthen our tier 1 instruction, that we protect intervention time, and that we also are progress monitoring their growth. In upper elementary, the gains are a little bit more uneven, as you will notice, and this suggests that there might need to be some tighter alignment with the core instruction and interventions, but we will be working on that. So our next slide. This is our M-Class Lectura, and the Spanish results show a district-wide improvement from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year with an at or above increase of about 6 points, and well below is decreasing about 6 points. So note the far right side, 6th grade is an area of concern with a mid-year decline in at or above and an increase in well below. The opposite end of the graph, the left-hand side, we want to protect what's happening in kindergarten and in first grade because we can see the biggest movement out of well below. The highest leverage move is to keep the structures that are in place in those grades stable and scale their practices. So they have tight foundational skills, as you saw in the classes that you observed today, Dr. West. They have daily decoding and encoding. They have a high response to instruction, and there's frequent checks on their mastery. So if those grade teams are doing something noticeably different, then we want to use them as model classrooms specifically for our Spanish literacy in this group. Okay. The next slide, it is the same data source. Would you click it? I think it's at least one more time. You can do one more click because I did something kind of cool. And then, oh no, it didn't work for me. Oh, bummer. Okay. Left-hand side and the right-hand side are the same data points. You will see a difference where the red is on top and the blue is on the bottom. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the why behind that switch. The triangle below is therefore a reference point. It's used as a visual for a school's multi-tiered system of supports. And it's used for academic, social, emotional learning behavior. In this case, we're looking at it for third grade reading growth over time. The green, which should represent about 80% of our students, is what tier instruction addresses. The yellow is targeted small group interventions that should be about 15% of our population. And the red in the triangle represents tier 3, 5% of our students. So that would be a healthy system. The colors should be, the green should represent about 80% of our students. So I flipped the data for you to look on the right-hand side. This is a group of third grade students that started in kindergarten and over the following 4 years have made growth. So you can see that they went from 15% in tier 1 meeting expectation to 48%. So there has been lots of growth in this third grade group. However, what we see is that we're not quite at 80% yet. So we're working on that tier 1 instruction. Before I move on to the next slide, are there any questions about that?
So I want to reiterate that third grade, so spring of this year, these third graders will be given the SBAC so that we have taken the state test. And these are the kids that we will see on our report card. What you won't see is the progress that they've made since kindergarten. On the graph on the right shows that progression, that growth that they've made on our local benchmark assessments over time in English. Remember that many of our students are also learning Spanish at the same time in our bilingual classrooms.
Can I ask, is this the cohort that started with Amplify?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes, we did talk about that. It is.
That's, could you talk just a second about that for the board, for new board members, which, because is that part of what we're seeing in the instructional change too, right? Is the structure around that particular curriculum?
Absolutely. So these students have had the amplified curriculum since kindergarten. So they've had that continuity. These students have had the benefit of many teachers as we present to investment in science of reading. So the professional learning associated with that and the assessment tools that Amplify brings, as well as that we've adopted, they've had that entire experience and as a cohort.
Before we move off this, I want to emphasize what Assistant Superintendent Lomeli pointed out in that the state data tell us exactly one thing. How a student performed on a state test is connected from just about everything related to instructional decisions at a moment in time. It's not that the data tell us nothing. there is a purpose to the state test. I believe, how do I say this? It is my opinion that the purpose for those state tests has been corrupted. We are having conversations about the state tests as a measure of the health of the school system. And they don't do that anymore, especially for a district like ours, where a significant number of our students are English learners. They don't tell the whole story of the student's trajectory through our system, K-12, or in our case, pre-K-12. Again, there is some information to glean from these tests. I don't think that they should be completely disregarded, but in the state of Oregon, the state, not school districts, the state has made decisions about these tests that have rendered them nearly useless. And so I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done at the state level for these tests to return to any kind of semblance of feasibility for school districts. That's going to take a lot of years to undertake. In the meantime, it is really important for us to look at these growth data, because the growth data really tell us whether or not our system is working. And as we've discussed, we could extend this all the way to the high school level, and we can see that our high schoolers generally perform as well as the state or better in these same measurements, especially in the language arts. And our students who develop English proficiency before they enter high school, who are English learners, are graduating at rates far higher than the state and higher than almost every other student within our district. So there's a lot that is working in our school district that we have to be proud of. We wouldn't know that in the absence of measurements like these.
Thank you, Dr. West.
I want to add one piece in regards to this type of assessment. What I'm seeing in classrooms is that teachers are taking the information and sharing it with families, sharing it with students, making goals, whereas the end of the year test is not returned to them fast enough to do the same thing. So there's feedback given to teachers, there's feedback given to parents, there's feedback given to students that can be acted upon much sooner. And that's the benefit of having these assessments as well. So in this slide, the comparison on the left-hand side to the right-hand side is English language and Spanish language. So again, we still want to see a healthy 80% in tier 1. But the point I want to point out here is that although the Spanish in kindergarten was a lot lower, they made some really big change growth over time. So 82% were at risk, and it's gone down to 37%. So that's something to be really proud of as a district. So what was I going to say? Okay, so if I look at the English side, the blue and green are 15% of our students meeting benchmark 23-24. Those students were kindergarten. And look where they are now, 25-26 in English are now 48% of them meeting benchmark. So that's the big gains as well. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a question. You had mentioned that these reports are shared with parents as well. Do you guys share the information of, like, I know when I got state testing, at least when I was in it, my mom was just like, why aren't you doing better? Why aren't you at or exceeding? And again, like, when we look at those numbers, it's just you're not meeting whatever it is that the state is requiring you to meet, but yet there is growth happening. So is that also communicated to parents? And is that usually formally in person, or is that just a piece of paper that's sent out?
This exact graph is not shared that way. It would be their individual score that or their results that parents would receive. And the hope is, and the teachers are meeting with parents in the fall and in the spring to review this data. Unfortunately, sometimes all parents cannot make those, so it is sent home. But I've seen principals write out letters to help parents understand how to read the data. That's the most important piece, right? How do you take that information and learn to support your students? So that's promising as well.
Yeah.
In addition, these new assessment tools provide very family-friendly letters that go home with how to interpret the data. And also, in some cases, what you can do to help fill in any gaps.
And Arturo, is this,
Yeah.
you shared, I think this with me last year, I had a similar question,
Yeah.
you shared a sample, is that the same
Yes.
structure?
Mhm.
That would be helpful too, to
Yeah.
share with the board an
Yeah.
example of that.
Do that.
Because I remember it did have, it was a family friendly, if I'm remembering what I've looked
Yeah,
at.
the data and the visuals, and again, at the end, here's 3 things you can do to help.
Yeah, okay.
Is this just K to
Yeah.
6?
Yeah. So the math letters look a little bit different, but the K6 is elementary focus, the M class and.
Is there anything like high school level?
The
Yeah,
letters exist for both, yeah.
Mhm.
and is that being shared to parents in the same way that?
Yes.
It should be at least.
Yeah, I mean, that's the intent. Yeah, absolutely. The tools are there. I know it's something that we've talked about over the last few years. I would need to follow up with our secondary schools just to confirm that when and how it's happening.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are these kids, when they were in kinder, were they part of the COVID group of kids that lost instruction at home or?
21, 20,
Or no.
22,
No,
23.
these are our students who came back full-time and were able to jump into Amplify.
They may have missed preschool.
Yeah.
They may have missed early learning opportunities because of the pandemic, but in school year 2022-23, we were in person.
Okay.
I mean, the difference between 82% and 37 is, pretty substantial. So I was curious.
We're trending in the right direction. We still have a lot of work to do. Right? I'm committed to that, but we'd love to see that trajectory begin to change.
Are you seeing parent involvement a little more when you're sharing this over to the parents? Or do we feel like maybe parent involvement needs to be a little more?
Yeah, that's something I'd have to, I think it varies. And that's something I probably want to talk to principals about what they're seeing. I haven't done that yet. I will say from a teacher perspective, I've done listening sessions at all of our schools, elementary schools so far. And they're just really positive. It was hard. The new curriculum was hard, especially in year 1. It was very different. It took a year for everybody to kind of go through it and to understand it and to learn it. But I'm not hearing the same struggles as I did 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, I hear lots of appreciation for it. And now it's okay. I know my kids need this, so how can I adjust for our students? But they feel like there's so many effective elements to it that are really working for us. And so that feels great. And I'm hearing the same on the math side, which we'll get to here in a second as well.
The
Yeah.
ELL or ESL intervention tools that were added, that's this group after just a year with those, or was that?
We have that data for you later in the presentation as well. No, I appreciate that. I'm glad it's on the radar, Christy. Thank you. Yes.
Okay,
And the
so-
last piece for elementary.
So this last piece of data is, I think, where we got really excited when we were preparing to share this with you. It is our math growth data or achievement data. Far left is all K through 12. The dark blue represents this year's fall achievement, where the light blue represents where we are in the winter. And then the green shows fall to winter growth last year, and then compared to this year's fall to winter growth. So ideally, you want to see all 4 of those continue to rise. In order to close that gap that we have, we want to see a lot more growth. So I want to highlight what 3rd grade is doing and what 6th grade is doing there. You'll see that 3rd grade, they started multiplication. So sticking to the curriculum you can see how it's made a big impact on our students. The curriculum is aligned to brain research around math and how you use vocabulary and discourse and manipulatives, concrete representations, explain your thinking. Teachers are using release of responsibility and using the formative assessments to inform their practices, to guide their instruction. In addition, the information that the teachers have from these reports is impacting how they prepare for instruction. They're able to plan for interventions and differentiation throughout the day. So MAP measures kindergarten to 12th grade. On my scale here, I have kindergarten through 6th grade. What else? Oh, the highlight I wanted to share with you is Joseph Gale. It's not in this slide deck, but Joseph Gale last year, their proficiency was at a 39%. And this year they're at the 64th percentile. So a national, that number is 50%. So they're at 64%. So I just met with Mariela yesterday. She's constantly telling me about what they're doing in math, and they have strong tier 1 instruction. They talk about math in their 100% meetings, and math interventions are really important to her in her building. And I can see that in the growth. So that's something to be proud of.
Again, going back to, this is the first full year of the K4 math adoption. So adoptions are hard, right? This is another place where in its first year, it's like, it's a struggle. You're learning a whole new way of delivering content, all new resources. It takes a lot of extra time. Thankfully, what I'm hearing from teachers and in buildings is that it's the right work. It's the right tools. We're doing the right work. It's just going to take us some time, but you can see what staff is doing is really making a positive difference. And so kudos to our teachers for making it all work.
Pass the microphone.
Yep.
All right. Secondary. So in our school district, secondary is 7 through 12. And I am going through the same categories of literacy, Spanish literacy, and math. In our secondary schools, we use STAR and STAR Lectura for our reading, both in English and in Spanish. And then we also use the MAP, as Magda had mentioned, that goes K through 12. So this chart looks like the one that Magda had for MAP. This is STAR, Reading Achievement and Growth. So similar, are pretty much the same here. So the fall achievement, winter achievement, and then you have fall to winter growth in last year, and then fall to winter growth for this year. And you'll notice the couple things that are important about the secondary schools. 12th grade drops off because when students hit a certain Lexile reading level, they no longer have to take the STAR test. So what that looked like from fall to winter is that in the winter, only 20 students had to take it. And so that was not, so I just took 12th grade off of this. For 11th grade, it's important to know that there are about 100 fewer students who took the test. So they would be in that light blue. So you see that the light blue kind of goes down. If they were included in this data, you would see that light blue go much higher for 11th grade. 7th through 10th grade, all students have taken the STAR there. So we are seeing some trends in the right direction. And we for sure would like to see a little bit more growth this year with the 7th grade there, but you can see that there's still some growth happening there. This is Lectura. This is only 1 grade level. So we, as our, the dual language from the elementaries are starting to roll up and look a little different through our secondaries. We have a 7th grade cohort that is taking Spanish language arts this year, and they took the Lectura this year. And so this is their fall to winter achievement. And there is no data from last year for them. So they just have this current year's growth there in the dark green. And so it's pretty stable, but this is our first year with this measure in that grade level. This is our MAP. 7th through 11th grade. So students in the high school, math tapers off over time. So again, 12th grade didn't make sense to have on here. We see core math, 7th through 10th grade. And there are enough students in the 11th grade here that I included data there as well. Again, we see trends going in the right direction. We still see kind of a dip going on in 7th grade, similar to our STAR data here. Got anything else on that one? Okay, and then this is eighth grade math. This is our, we look at eighth grade math as one of our accountability groups for the state. And so this graph looks similar to the M-Class Lectura slides that you saw early on. So if you orient yourself all the way to the left on this one, you can see all of our eighth graders in the fall, and this is achievement data. And this is flipped with the red on top to match that triangle there on the right. And that is followed by their winter scores, and you can see trending in the right direction there, followed by our different cohorts here. So our Hispanic group, our ELL group, and our SPED group as well. So, and you can see in each category where that growth is mostly happening. We have an interesting pattern with our SPAD data where we have the red is shrinking, which we like, but we also want to see the green and blue growing, which our blue is growing, but the green is not. It's a little bit of work to do there as well. And I do not have the trend data that Magda had for third grade reading that she took all the way back to kinder, because the MAP assessment, we've only been doing it since 2023. And so it would have only been 2 full years of data for that. So we can't see the historical on that piece. Any questions on this slide?
We wanted to hone in a little bit on third and eighth grade because those are 2 groups that are reported to the state. And so we wanted to make sure that we bring that to you as updates.
Now we're going to talk about the ELD data, and we use Flashlight 360 not only as a tool to measure what they're able to do, but also students are practicing using the tools in Flashlight 360. So this measures speaking and writing, which we know are productive domains, and they actually take longer to develop because they require students to generate language independently rather than just recognize it or interpret it. So we have a strong sample size here. I think this is something that we're really proud of compared to other districts. And this comes from the Flashlight representative. He's really impressed that our staff and students, we have more students taking this test than other districts. So that's really going to not just give us good data, but really going to help our students. So this slide here, you can see on the far left an average speaking score for all grade levels. And we want to see growth between the fall and the winter, which is what you see in the 2 different colors from all students to 12th grade. And this is their speaking from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. I want to point out that as a district, our focus has been on student discourse, opportunities to respond using sentence stems and sentence language frames. And so we can see that we're getting good results from that.
Before you switch it, I just wanted to say one thing. We had updated something on the slides that's not showing here. So I wanted to explain BOY is beginning of year and MOY is middle of year. So we're looking at fall of 2025 and middle of the year, which is winter 2026.
I was going to ask for that.
Boy, moy. Yeah.
Fall to winter.
Yes. So could be better slides.
And the next slide, we already took. Okay, this one is the.
This one's writing.
Absolutely.
This question is coming out of left field. The comparison in connection with the speech we heard earlier. Braylon indicated that public speaking is probably the biggest fear that Americans have. You know, they'll walk into a burning building before they'll give a speech in front of a large audience, and there's a good deal of seriousness to that. Do we take into consideration that innate nervousness of public speaking, even if it's in class answering questions, the teacher tosses out, there's still some nervousness there. Is this taken into consideration that?
Okay. Yeah. So what's great about Flashlight is it's adding practice regularly on speaking, because we do see that. And so when students were taking the ELPA once a year and they were having to speak on a test once a year. There are a lot of nerves there. And so now they have this opportunity. They can do the benchmark multiple times a year, 3 times a year, but they can also do progress monitoring it. So they get lots more practice with it than they did before, because speaking into a microphone is a whole different level of nervousness. And so, and that with our student discourse practice, kids are talking all the time. And there's a lot of warm calling that happens. So kids have an opportunity to practice on a low level before they're called on in class time. So yeah, that is taken into account for sure. And then on top of that, we have a great relationship with the people who run Flashlight, and they have looked at our data to see how many students just aren't speaking or get nervous and to make errors because they're nervous. And so we have that data, and we're able to coach our students. Like, if you could just, if you expand this by this many words, or if you try with this small sentence to start, and we can do that individually with kids and give them feedback.
Next.
So this slide is their fall to winter, so beginning of year to mid-year writing, and you'll see very similar as well. There's progress from the beginning to the middle of the year. What I wish I had more time to explain the different levels of proficiency. It will be really difficult for us to see level 4 on here, because once students are level 4, they're just not going to take the ELPA anymore. So I want to point that out. The 3.38, that's up there, is ideal. Anything much further beyond that, they're just not going to be part of the data anymore. So as much as we want to reach to the top, it's just not going to happen, because they are no longer, needing to take the tests.
In other words, the students who are still learning English are taking the test, but if you've tested out, you're not in the data, right? So we're not capturing that progress.
And we can see that a little bit more on this next slide. So this, the next 2 slides are really interesting that Flashlight pulled for us. This is cohort data. So students who were with us at the beginning of last school year, who took the test in the fall and are still currently with us in the winter. So these are same students who took at those times, and you can see their growth in about a year and a half. So this does not include kindergartners, because they were in preschool last year. It doesn't include anybody who graduated, and it doesn't include anybody who passed the ELPA last year. So this is truly cohort students and the growth that they are making across the board in speaking. And then the next slide shows the same trends for writing. And you can see that all students' growth is looking really nice. And after this year, we will have 2 full years worth of data, and we'll be able to look at how that's comparing to our ELPA scores and see how much it is matching the same growth and exit rates. So we'll be able to share that hopefully in the spring, maybe in the fall.
Any additional questions in the board?
What are your challenges?
In general.
The scores look really good. That's what I'm seeing.
Well, the progress is good. There's a lot to celebrate. No doubt about it, right? And having been here now my 3rd year, I can feel that the level of commitment to curriculum instruction and assessment with the district level and the building level has only strengthened over that time. But we still have variability, right? We still have, until we get to a point where we feel like I can walk into this 2nd grade classroom and the neighboring 2nd grade classroom and the classroom in another building, that we have that alignment, that we have that shared vision and commitment to curriculum instruction and assessment. That's still a challenge for us. We made progress. It's getting better. I would also just say, tier 1 instruction in general, right? That is, we know that we're not going to intervene our way out of the red. The way we're going to do that is through solid core instruction, right? And so reducing that variability across our system, I think, is our biggest challenge and our biggest opportunity.
Are you thinking of more professional development for the staff?
I don't know if it's more, but deeper and stronger, right? How do we differentiate for our staff? Because we have staff at different parts of their own journey, right? And I think what we've really want to be able to do moving forward is differentiate for people for staff needs, just as we ask them to differentiate for student needs.
I think core instruction, I see that being a strength. What is a challenge is implementing interventions because they're very different in kindergarten as compared to sixth grade. And so what I found is sometimes sixth grade teachers don't know how to apply the phonics that kids did not get in the primary grade. So that's where it starts to get a little bit difficult. And also when in their time do they do that? Because they're by that age, they should be reading to learn, not learning to read. So that's something that we are working on as well.
And I would say that exists at our secondary schools too, because we have students who are still below benchmark many years in their reading levels. It's challenging for our secondary schools to be able to teach some of those foundational skills that are needed along with the content.
So what's the percentage of that, of those students? Is it a pretty high percentage that still require that?
Well, if you go back to some of the data in the red, when they, like the RTI triangle, when we look at who is in that red, we start to dig down to find out exactly how deep is that cavity and where do we need to go. And so sometimes it does go as far as the phonemic awareness level. Sometimes it's a fluency level. So schools are working to figure that out for each student.
Will you go back to the star slide?
Mm-hmm.
So for secondary, this one, if you look at the winter achievement, that light blue, you can kind of see those percentages. So seventh grade is a little bit above 30% of students who are achieving at grade level. So that's a pretty significant number of students who are not at the seventh grade level midway through seventh grade. So that gives you an idea, but same with what Magda is saying, being able to drill down to figure out what are those lagging skills or missing pieces, if it's fluency or if it's phonics, that takes more digging than what this simple graph would show.
You asked about professional learning for educators, and that is something, as we heard, we'll continue to work on. There's also an element of improved feedback. Any of us who have been a coach, you know that a very small improvement in the way you hold the bat, in the way you pick a soccer ball, it can be minute to someone who is not educated in that sport, and it's improvements in performance. It can be the same way with our educators. So if we are providing good coaching, good feedback, and identifying those small moves that teachers can make to improve their performance in the classroom as educators, we could see some accelerated results that come out of that. And that's some work that we need to continue to do with our leaders.
The leaders and the principals? Or just
Well, across the district, school leaders, district leaders, we all have the opportunity to lead into coaching and feedback. And so that is something that we are continually working on.
Thank you so much for
Thank
the
you.
detailed presentation.
Yeah.
I think Arthur will just have you.
I'm gonna stick around a little while. I think this, yeah, I think this chair is gonna stay warm.
Oh, and Elizabeth.
You got a couple of others.
And Brenda and Sarah.
Oh, I guess I feel that.
That's all right. Yeah. Brought a team with me.
Okay. Okay, thank you for allowing us to join you and talk about our process. So we met as a calendar committee, and we brought a couple of representatives here with us. We've done this work since the beginning of January, and so we're going to allow them to tell you a little bit about the process that we went through. I'm going to have them introduce themselves first.
Hi, I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm Elizabeth Moore. I'm the president of FGEA, but I am also a sixth grade teacher at Tom McCall, and I was on the committee as a teacher representative.
I'm Brenda Hauser. I work at Fernhill Elementary as an instructional assistant and reading specialty. I help with small reading groups. And I was on the committee, obviously, as an instructional assistant.
So the purpose of our committee was to develop recommendations to inform the academic calendar for the 26-27 school year. At the beginning, we were hopeful that we might be able to develop a 2-year calendar. That ultimately was not what we ended up with, but that was discussed at the beginning of our process as well. One of the goals of the committee this year was to make it more inclusive. In the past, it had been kind of a closed door process with a small group of people who looked at the calendar. And I think Arturo had a great idea of expanding the committee and getting more voices involved. So we had 5 classified staff members, 5 licensed staff, and then 5 administrators or people from the district office. And this really broadened the views of the committee and the perspectives. We had lots of representation of different schools, different grade levels. We had instructional assistants who brought their voice, and so that was excellent. And the process was really transparent. People were able to ask questions. Lots of people on the committee were able to talk with stakeholders in their buildings or in their work groups. And so that made the process really visible to a lot of people. And finally, our timeline, like Sarah explained, we started meeting in January and we met, which is kind of unusual for a Forest Grove School District committee. We met weekly. So we met and first we learned about what are our legal and contractual obligations. So we dug into the contract. We were provided with a lot of really good information about what we legally have to do. We compared some other school district calendars for some ideas of maybe what ours could look like if we wanted to, or if we wanted to align. And then we looked at feedback that we had received from students, from staff, and from parents. We had over 3,000 responses to the calendar feedback form, which gave us so much data to go through. That was an entire meeting and really informative. And then we all had a chance to develop different calendars. So everyone kind of had some homework and they made up their like ideal calendar and then presented it. And then we went through some revisions and then finally evaluated. I think we ended up presenting 2, which were evaluated. And then we've come up with the one that we are presenting to you tonight.
So the committee priorities were 1, to focus on protecting instructional and instruction time and learning. Secondly, to the alignment across K through 12 systems, so to make everything align through all of our schools and improve attendance. So there were some things that this calendar will do. This calendar will maintain student contact days, the same as it did this particular year. It will create K through 12 semester grading calendar. So we were previously on a trimester, now we'll all be on the same semester. It's going to reduce the sibling misalignment days from 8 to 4, which is really important. Working in a grade school, it's really nice that the students will now be with their siblings so that they'll miss less days from school. It will maintain a soft start. So the younger grades, the beginning of each of the schools that they walk into, they're going to start the school without the other students coming in. And to me, that was a big priority for students because it does create a lot of social and emotional fears for them. In the grade school, it will lose 1 professional learning day, but in the secondary schools, there will be no loss of professional learning days for licensed staff.
And so our next steps, we plan to implement the calendar for this year, assuming it gets approved by the board. This committee is going to stay active. We're going to reconvene in January of next year to determine what went well, what are some potential challenges that we've had in the fall. And our hope is to bring forward a recommendation in February of next year where we are presenting a 2-year calendar because we feel as a committee that that will help bring stability for our families and for our staff to know what to expect for 2 years ahead. We just didn't feel with the changes that we are proposing, we didn't feel right bringing a 2 years of calendar, knowing that there's some changes. We wanted to learn from it first. So yeah, that is anybody have anything to add?
I think it went really well.
Yeah. Any questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah.
This is the best presentation yet for a calendar. I think over years, it's, I love it that you have all this input and 3,000, community people, parents. Thank you. I mean, I think this reflects the whole organization and not a top down.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm super thankful for all of our committee members and for our presenters here today. It really felt good. The feedback we had across the board, that it felt like it was very collaborative, that we all were able to share, the folks were able to share their voices and, maintaining student contact days, for example. I mean, we know how important that is, especially in the state of Oregon, across our country. We know that that is central to the outcomes that we talked about earlier, right? We cannot achieve those outcomes if we don't make these investments while also balancing attendance and how do we align and how do we make things easier for families? Because right now with the trimester and a semester, we have 8 days where siblings may not be going to school at the same time. And that's confusing and that has an impact. And so the fact that we're able to go from 8 to 4, and really the 4 are the slow starts that happen and conferences. Those are really the only 2 times where siblings may not be going. We cut that in half. And that felt really good to the committee. So I, again, want to give kudos to all the committee members because I would say that they came in with really a servant's heart to do what's best for our district and our kiddos and our staff. So thank you again.
All right, I think with that, we might just have you stay there for action item because it's action item number 1, unless there were other comments from the board.
Thank you to everyone.
Yes, thank you. It's a lot of time, weekly meetings. Very much appreciated. So I think do we need to, for action item, you guys are listed here again, but I'm gonna.
Go right ahead and then we'll go
Okay,
ahead.
well then, I'll look for a motion for our first action item.
Motion to approve the Forest Grove School District academic calendar for the 2026-2027 school year as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none? Pete?
I was gonna just second what everybody said, that this is a hell of a job. Thank you very much. It's not fun. It's
kind of fun.
You get parents screaming at you, you get teachers screaming at you about things, and I think you did it right. So when your partner's in it, you can't complain all that much. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we'll do an all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes. Thank you, everybody. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And next we are going to talk with Director Klug about district office replacement. Oh, thank you. That was.
Hi, so tonight we have the district office roof replacement. We did go out for bid. We received 3 quotes, one from Northern Pacific, one from West Coast Roofing, and one from Solid Roofing Northwest. We would like to award the bid to Northern Pacific Roofing for $396,254 through the Garland DBS contract. This would be out of remaining bond funds.
Questions?
Quick question, are any of these local businesses, just like in our community, are these big organizations, like big companies?
I think several of them are regional already.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the district office roofing contracts with Garland /DBS Incorporated for $396,204 utilizing bond funds.
Second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passes. Thank you. Enrique Pignon, network server and storage replacement.
Thank you. This is a continuation of our technology infrastructure bond projects. This is the next one that we have in front of us. So as part of this project, we're replacing some of the older server and storage units in the district that are either no longer supported or just resources needed for the servers that we have right now. So the request is to approve purchasing new servers, the Dell PowerStore and PowerEdge servers and storage units from SHI International underneath the Omnia pricing agreement, utilizing bond funds. And the recommendation is to purchase the network and storage equipment at a cost of $130,000, $130,146.84 utilizing bond funds.
Questions?
Move to approve the purchase of the network server and storage equipment upgraded from SHI International utilizing bond funds for a total cost of $130,146.84.
Second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. And Dr. West is going to talk to us about the inter-district transfer process.
Yes, thank you. We are legally required to offer transfers both into and out of the district. We have over the past several years aligned our timeline for these transfers with our neighboring districts. That's important for our families, so there's hardship transfers, for example. So we are bringing forward a proposed transfer timeline for April 1st, 2026 through May 15th, 2026. As we have been discussing, our enrollment is declining. In consultation with our school leaders, our principals around the district, we believe that we can open up 165 spots and accommodate students in our district if they'd like to join us. A new practice is that we are not opening up any slots for leaving the district outside of a hardship request. So we are recommending 0 slots be open for transfers out of the forest. And we bring this to the board for consideration and action. Questions from the board?
May I ask what a hardship would be?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I'll give you a couple of examples. One would be if a family has childcare next to a school in the Hillsborough School District, for example. That may qualify for a hardship transfer. We wouldn't want the family to have to navigate bringing their child many miles back to us when their childcare is somewhere else. Another example is that we have had situations where students within a school don't get along. There might be some instances of bullying, and we work really hard to resolve those at the school level, but sometimes families decide that they don't want to continue to work with the school to resolve those issues, or they feel like the issues are not resolving quickly enough, and they request to move to another school in a different district to support their child. That's an example where we would want to support the family if we felt like that was the best interest of the child.
So it's not like black and white, you would hear out the parent and then you'd make a decision whether that's also under the hardship category.
Well, the criteria are pretty clear. So there is some subjectivity. And it does have to go before the superintendent's approval before the family can just transfer, not just mine, but it would be the other district as well. It's a 2-part process. So they may request a transfer out of our district, but the other district doesn't have to accept them. So that is something that the family would need to navigate. So there is some level of subjectivity embedded within that, but the criteria are pretty clear. For example, in the case of childcare, that makes a lot of sense for a family to be granted the transfer. Other questions?
Nobody care to make a motion?
I move to approve the timeline and recommended slots for the 2026-2027 school year as presented.
Second. Discussion?
Yes, there is.
Yes,
Or
sir.
a question or comment. This has always been difficult for me because I've had students in the classroom say they're getting out of the class and they're leaving Forest Grove High School and spitting on Mr. Truax's grave when they go out the door. And I've always had the concern that, there are, and I'm gonna vote yes on this, but I just get the little stomach acid over the process of people moving from district to district. School shopping is what I sometimes have called it. And sometimes they have disguised the real reason for transferring. And I have found in my career as athletic director that athletics was one of the major reasons for transferring. And something that is as important as a public, free and appropriate public education, that train ought not to be driven by the caboose of athletics. And it has happened more than once. I have been guilty of accepting students from other school districts who transferred and primarily for athletic reasons. And that never sat well with me. And I've also seen students leave Forest Grove. I'm glad OSAA started tightening up on that. In the latter years of my service as an AD, but it's still, I get, like I say, a little bit of stomach acid on transfers between school districts. For that reason, just call me naturally suspicious. But like I said, I will vote yes on.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Pete, because, when I was at the high school, I made home visits for all my IEP students. And then when I checked the transcript of these students, they were only there for one semester and then went back to the other school. So they never took their grades in January finals. So they lost the semester of academics. And it happened year after year. And the only way I found out about it was because I made a home visit. And it was the address of the coach. So I would hope that when we look at these, should look at their transcript too, especially in high school for athletics.
You know, we can't. The law actually prohibits us from making decisions about transfers based on some criteria. So it's really been tightened up quite a bit in terms of what we can approve, can't approve. So to your earlier question, there is a little bit of latitude and subjectivity, but not a great deal any longer. It used to be much more liberal in terms of students going in and out. And that's to the benefit of students because we had some districts that were making decisions that were in some cases harmful to children because of behaviors and other things. And so the state, I think rightly so in this case, has tightened that down quite a bit. And there are still, unfortunately, families that are dishonest in the way they approach transfers. And sometimes we learn about that and sometimes we don't. For us, and this applies also with students who are homeless, we educate anyone who walks in the door. We don't dig too deeply if we find out that there was exception, we address it when we find out about it. But when somebody knocks on our door and says we want to be educated, we educate them.
Yeah, that's why I asked. I mean, the students are still our children too. So we should have some sort of decision making as to obviously where we want them to do their education. And that's the reason why I asked if there was any flexibility in sharing perhaps the why and seeing if there's that opportunity of still happening. But yeah, dishonesty still happens. That's gonna be hard to take away.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation I think we can continue to have, like, when we have our Zoom meeting too, that's a space where we can kind of hear more about how it actually works. Yeah, it happens, and so we'll answer some of those questions, but good comments tonight. I think it's been moved and seconded, and I think I will do an all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. We're gonna move on to first read, which usually we don't have presentations for first read, but tonight we do have Brad Burke is here just in case there are questions, and Patrol only
Back.
all received in the packet summaries of the classes that they're gonna talk a little bit about, and this is an opportunity for them to talk about that briefly and ask if the board has questions or needs clarification about courses that are going to be asked them.
Yeah, thank you. So we, the board in policy, the board approves and removes courses from our course catalog. And so typically once a year, our secondary schools go through a process of identifying any potential new courses. We bring them to the board. Typically, principals are here to answer any questions associated with it. And then the subsequent meeting would be approval of those courses. We know we have many new board members, so we wanted to just share some of those, the 3 new courses that we have to bring to you for approval. And Mr. Burke, principal at Forest Grove High School, will do that.
Arturo covered that, and Arturo covered that. Okay. My voice is a little shaky. I'm not 100%, so I apologize for that. Arturo will probably get sick, so. We usually have about 8 to 10 courses proposed each year. We stressed with our staff that we needed FTE neutral proposals. So these are the 3 courses that came through our system. So the first one is Mindful Studies. It is an elective that Terry Jones, one of our language arts social studies teachers, was pretty passionate about offering. She came to me 2 years ago, in fact, about offering the course. She felt like her own children and the students she's taught would benefit from it. It is, she's working with a group called Peace in Schools. And so she's been trained over the last year to provide that course. And next year would be the year we would offer it, pending forecasting. And so the reason is that Ms. Jones's passion for wanting to offer this, it also meets the transformative social emotional learning standards that we need to have in our school. We do feel like a lot of students will benefit from it. It teaches how to deal with anxiety, conflict resolution, stress, and it's geared for 10th through 12th graders. It would be FTE neutral in the fact that we have, in the department that Ms. Jones teaches, that we have some study skills classes that are offered. They don't always forecast at full level, but we offer them because we know that a lot of kids will be looking for electives, and study skills is one that they tend to go towards. So it would replace a section of study skills. Again, the forecasting would drive how many sections, but I anticipate we'd have one section each semester based on our availability. The second the second course is probably the most controversial. Not really. It is racket sports. So we've had net games and we've had tennis, but the weather does not allow us to do. Yes. So net games is pickleball, badminton, mostly indoor. Tennis is outdoors. The weather does not always cooperate with us. So a lot of times the tennis class turns into badminton and pickleball. So the PE department decided to take the 2 classes and combine them into one. So it's actually going to help our scheduling. Sometimes net games can be a singleton and you have to schedule it back to back because taking down the nets and all that good stuff. So that will actually help our schedule. We will not offer tennis. We will not offer net games. We will offer racket sports. I did check the spelling of racket sports. That doesn't seem right, but it is right, I guess. Seems like it should be QU, but I guess that's racquetball. The third one is beginning mariachi. Miss Nunez is looking at her numbers at NAMS and the interest she has at the high school. She tried to float a beginning strings class this past year. It was approved by the board, but it didn't forecast as well, so we did not offer it. So she'd like to try to maybe offer a beginning mariachi. She has a advanced mariachi, intermediate. This would provide a beginning, an entry point for people who want to try it, or people who it is a fairly competitive, widely celebrated and successful program. And this would offer a course for students who are interested in trying mariachi. It is FTE neutral in the fact that it would replace a section of guitar. So guitar is a class that, again, we have 5 sections of it right now. It doesn't feed into any program like mariachi or orchestra or band or choir. So we would not offer 2 sections of guitar if we had enough kids to offer a forecast for beginning mariachi. So again, these three courses are all driven by our forecasting. If we don't have enough kids who sign up for these classes, then we would not offer them. So, questions?
I just have one, and that's on the racket sports. There is a PE requirement for graduation from high school, right?
Yes.
Would this meet that?
This does meet it, yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there any cost to parents or students to participate in any of these?
That is a great question. The beginning mariachi sometimes has a cost in terms of like a t-shirt the intermediate one wears. And so Miss Nunez came to me for the intermediate mariachi class with that same problem when we were looking at fundraising options or trying to pay for that, for the performances. The advanced mariachi, as you've seen, it's very expensive for the costumes, but adding that program they would probably wear the mariachi t-shirts.
Right. And you come to us for approval of adding new classes. Does that also work the same way? They weigh course options? Or
Yeah.
how often do you guys like-
Yes, the board policy also says that we come to you for removal. We rarely do that. Usually what happens is the classes are on the books as approved, but maybe do not make or fill, so they don't offer them. We had talked actually earlier today, this conversation came up about it's probably time for us to review all of our course offerings and see if there's something that needs to be removed, but we haven't done that that I know of any
No, but and one of the reasons is because it may come back.
Mhm.
Personal finance is a good example. We passed personal finance probably 10 years ago, and then we stopped offering it, and it became a state requirement. And so since it was already in the course catalog, we didn't have to bring it back. But AP Environmental Science is a good example. We haven't offered that the last 3 years, but we still forecast for it in case kids are interested in it. It just hasn't drawn the numbers lately. We have a lot of AP Science class offerings,
So we can have many courses that are approved by the board, but just don't make because we don't have the numbers.
there are other like title changes, but they don't change the course standards or
Policy, Policy says that if they're drastically changed, we bring them to the board. Subtle changes, we can navigate those kind of things.
So what you'll see personal finance offered as a bilingual class. It's already been approved by the board, but now we'll teach it in English, but support in Spanish. And so we're offering more classes with bilingual support. We want kids a lot of students who either want to develop their English while like ALD 3 or 4 level, intermediate level, or it's kids who want to continue their Spanish, but still learning English. So we're trying to honor both. And so we have some classes that have added that bilingual option to it.
Any questions? All right, thank you for coming to do the presentation and answering the questions. Helpful to hear in person about the classes and first reads for us, so we'll be back to this people. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
For the board, we are going to not need a whole bunch of time on board discussion tonight, but it will be just a little bit. We're going to move that. If you think, we do have a slide of the questions for legislative candidates. I mean, it's real tiny there, but we've all got a copy here. And the reason we're not going to need a lot of time tonight is thanks to the board for getting individual feedback to me based on an initial list. And why we're talking about it tonight is I've made some adjustments. I talked about Reese's in-depth editing, which was amazing because she did point out the types of questions that were being asked. And providing some balance. Several people also mentioned, this will crack you up, that some of the questions seemed be a tiny bit confrontational, and so I don't know whose those would have been, and so I was able to make some adjustments and add in a question that Kate had added. I believe Alma, you also might want to add a question potentially to this tonight, but our goal tonight is to just make sure with this list, there's nothing that we want to take off for sure. And if there's anything we might want to add, that's our first task. The second task is just, I'm going to talk to you about Thursday's conversation about where we go with these questions. Tonight was the deadline for candidates to file. And I believe Rhett McLean has a challenge, will have two challengers. I believe Senator Solman, actually after this morning, has more than several challengers for her position. So there will be plenty of candidates who we potentially could send questions to, share questions with, or just use these questions as a guide. But let's just start to make sure that there's nothing on this list that anybody would like to consider taking off the list. Because there has been some consolidations, but mostly it should be what I found that we had most consensus over.
I guess number 5 raises a couple of, my intent to get a little sensitive on that one. The description of how you respond if educators in this district told you a policy passed in Salem was harming students locally. I would hope that we would be able to talk to the legislators down in Salem a lot sooner about the harm that we see that our educators in this district would see. Just seems to me that not only in Forest Grove, but around the state, teachers would be able to say, no, that legislation is going to make A, my job tougher, and B, students' lives harder. And there's no upside to this, or at least not an upside that I can see. And that would become part of the testimony on that bill before it became law. I just, call me a wild-eyed radical or looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. But if something was that destructive, then we would have figured it out long before. All in favor say aye, all opposed no, the ayes have it. This is passed and goes to the governor for signature. It would seem to me that we'd be able to get to that before. But again, if we really want to answer this question, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just thinking that it's not as necessary as I mean. Maybe I'm
I think
out to lunch, but
when I talked with board chairs about the options, their response was, can we make questions that will not require, that will, I think the word might have been forced, help legislators not give a politician's answer. So they said, these questions need to be specific enough so that they can't give the canned answer. I mean, maybe I might agree with you on that one, therapy, but I'm not sure if you just saw the short session, but there were multiple pieces there that would pass that you could argue are not great for kids. We'll get to that later, but okay, I'm putting a little question mark by 5. Any other questions that we don't need to see on this list? Okay, anything missing from this list that we'd like to add?
I would like to add, just like housing affordability, that just makes, I mean, that's a very impactful, for our community and our school, so. And I mean, that's also like supporting local businesses and job growth in the community as well.
And I think we captured that in the work session, so.
Yeah.
So.
I'd like to piggyback on that one. I've used the word siloing in the past. Housing is a problem across this state, affordable housing period. Childcare is a problem across the state. They may not directly be in the education silo, but they do impact education. Food availability. I don't know much about teaching, but I do know that a kid who's hungry doesn't give a rat's ass about parsing sentences. Excuse me, doesn't care a great deal about parsing sentences. Please change my language. So that's, I think we also need to focus on the student life, and when we focus on the student life, we're focusing on the life of the state of Oregon.
Well, I'd like to add on to that about childcare. I listened last night to NPR about childcare. And 70% of parents with children that have disabilities cannot find childcare. And I think that's a huge, huge issue. And it's nationwide, so somehow address that. Childcare, it's a problem, but those individuals that are providing childcare, they do not have the adequate resources to also support children with disabilities. And so I think that's an important piece. Is this the time to bring up the other thing I wrote to you or not?
Yeah, it's in here.
Oh, it is?
I think I added it.
I don't see it.
What? Okay, but go ahead.
So, okay, I'm always in left field or right field or no field, but I'm looking and I would like to ask legislators, if you're in a deficit spending and there is no increased money for our schools in the foreseeable future, would you support curtailing or freezing all mandates? And along with that, with the freeze of the mandates, review if these are effective for our school districts relevantly right now. And that's what I'd like to ask them, because I don't see where we're going to get any more money. And I think nobody is challenging the mandates. But the mandates, if there's over 100 of them, it is really affecting each district because they've got to try to meet those mandates and they're unfunded. So that's my question to legislators.
I think I captured it in number 2. It's not exactly the wording. Yes.
Did you say mandate?
Yeah, I did. I did.
All right.
All
I
right.
see it, okay.
It's there.
All
And
right.
anything, Teresa?
I think one thing that I've been looking a lot and it's something that I've done paper on it is there currently is no right to education. There is a right to access education, but I have not seen. And this comes up with immigration enforcement around your schools and how that's preventing some families from sending their students to school and kind of seeing what protections we can give students and what we can do and what that would look like.
Yeah, I would support that under the Free and Appropriate Education Act, concept in our Constitution. Maybe not in Oregon's, but since that's big within the US Constitution, it's there. We all know that. Maybe we just need to make people more aware that that's a right that everybody has, because it's their right, it's our responsibility to make sure that it's there. In spite of what the federal education department wants us to believe.
Okay.
I'll shut up.
So what I'm gonna do is make those adjustments, and then, before we go tonight, for Thursday, we have a couple things to consider without conversation. One is what we wanna do with these, in what capacity, and there's things we could think about, do we want to just email questions to the candidates so that they have the questions, so they're aware of types of things we're wondering? Do we want to email that with an invitation to candidates for individual conversations? Do we want to email questions on behalf of the board and ask for a response? Do we want to whittle this down to 2 or 3? I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can go about how we could do it, or we simply use it as a guide personally as we go out and talk with people. All of those options are on the table for Thursday's conversation, and the goal there is to kind of reach consensus on where we think we're going with next steps. Okay, all right. I think that's it. We're gonna adjourn at 7:29 p.m. Thank you, everybody.